The night she laughed. Asterisk, my wife laughed in my face when I tried to kiss her. That laugh destroyed everything. Asterisk. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's story will hit you right in the chest. My name is Kenji, and this is the night my marriage died. Picture this. You just spent 3 hours preparing the perfect romantic evening. Candles flickering, her favorite wine breathing, the playlist you made during your honeymoon playing softly in the background. And then your wife of 6 years looks at you like you're pathetic. Laughs, like you're some desperate stranger who just grabbed her on the street. That's exactly what happened to me. And that cruel laugh? It wasn't just rejection. It was the sound of 6 years crumbling into dust. Let me take you back to where this all began. Mei-Lin and I met through friends in our late 20s. Both of us had our careers locked down. I was pulling good money as an engineer. She worked for this boutique marketing agency downtown. We were that couple everyone envied, you know? The ones who had their lives figured out. Matching coffee mugs, weekend farmers market trips, Instagram-worthy date nights. For the first 3 years, we were solid. Really solid. We'd stay up talking until 2 a.m. about everything and nothing. She'd steal my hoodies and look better in them than I ever did. Sunday mornings meant sleeping in, making breakfast together, and planning our future. The intimacy was natural back then. Easy. We couldn't keep our hands off each other. But somewhere around year 4, things started shifting. At first, I told myself it was normal. Marriage changes people, right? Everyone says the honeymoon phase ends eventually. So when Mei-Lin started pulling away, I made excuses. She's just tired from work. The promotion is stressing her out. We're both getting older. The physical intimacy was the first thing to go. Not all at once. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it died slowly. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. First, it was once a week instead of 3 times. Then once every 2 weeks. Then, well, you get the picture. Mei-Lin always had reasons. Perfect, bulletproof reasons. I have this massive headache, babe. Work was brutal today. I'm exhausted. I'm just not in the mood right now. And like an idiot, I believed every single excuse. Because what else was I supposed to do? Demand intimacy from my own wife? But here's the thing that started eating at me. Mei-Lin had plenty of energy for everything else. She'd spend 2 hours getting ready to meet her girlfriends for drinks. Full makeup, new outfit, the works. She'd post these gorgeous selfies on Instagram with captions about living my best life. But at home? Sweatpants and silence. She'd walk through that front door and transform into a completely different person. Off came the heels, on came the baggy clothes. Off came the smile, on came this indifference. And don't get me started on the phone situation. Mei-Lin became surgically attached to that thing. Scrolling, typing, giggling at messages from people whose names she never mentioned. When I'd ask if she was texting, I'd get these vague responses. Oh, just work stuff. My sister sent me a funny meme. Group chat with the girls. Never any details. Never any explanations. Look, I'm not proud of what I thought next. But when your wife stops touching you and starts guarding her phone like state secrets, your mind goes places. Dark places. But instead of confronting her, because I wasn't ready for that conversation, I decided to fight for our marriage. I was going to romance the hell out of my wife until she remembered why she fell for me. So I planned surprise dates. Bought her favorite flowers just because it was Tuesday. Left little love notes in her purse. Made reservations at restaurants where we'd had amazing times early in our relationship. You know what Mei-Lin's response was to all this effort? Polite appreciation. Like I was some guy she barely knew doing nice things for her out of obligation. Oh, thank you, Kenji. This is sweet. Sweet. That word started haunting me. Sweet is what you call a stranger who holds the elevator. Sweet is not what you call your husband's desperate attempts to save your marriage. The harder I tried, the further she pulled away. The more romantic gestures I made, the more annoyed she seemed to get. I felt pathetic, like I was begging for scraps of attention from someone who'd already decided I wasn't worth her time. But I kept trying, because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You fight for them. The breaking point came on a Wednesday evening in October. I left work early to set up what I hoped would be our romantic reset. I'm talking the full production here. I cooked her favorite Thai curry from scratch. Set up candles throughout the dining room. put on that silk shirt she used to love running her hands over. When Mei-Lin walked through the door, she seemed genuinely surprised. Wow, Kenji, this looks really nice. There was that word again. Nice. Not romantic. Not amazing. Nice. During dinner, I tried to connect with her. Really connect. I asked about her dreams, her fears, what she wanted from our future together. But it felt like interviewing a stranger. Her answers were surface level and careful, like she was participating in some mandatory team-building exercise at work. After dinner, I suggested we move to the couch, continue our evening, maybe watch that show we used to binge together. The wine had relaxed me a little. The candlelight was perfect. This soft jazz playlist was creating exactly the mood I'd hoped for. So I moved closer to her on the couch, started touching her the way I used to, the way that used to make her melt into me. And that's when it happened. Mei-Lin turned to look at me, and instead of the warmth I was hoping for, she laughed. Not a giggle, not a nervous chuckle, a full, mocking laugh. Then she said the words that ended our marriage. Kenji, there's no way I'm sleeping with you tonight. But it wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Like I was ridiculous for even trying. Like my desire for my own wife was some kind of joke. The humiliation hit me like a physical blow. I sat there, stunned, trying to process what had just happened. The woman I'd married, the person I'd committed my entire life to, had just laughed at me for wanting to be intimate with her. I mean, we even say to that. Mei-Lin seemed to realize she'd crossed a line, but instead of apologizing, she just went back to scrolling through her phone. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just shattered what was left of my self-respect. I sat on that couch for maybe 10 minutes, watching her thumb through Instagram stories while my world fell apart. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that laugh over and over. The look on her face, the casual cruelty of it all, and I finally understood something I'd been refusing to see for months. This wasn't about stress or timing or bad communication. My wife didn't just lack interest in being intimate with me. She had contempt for me. You don't mock someone you love and respect. Even if you're not in the mood, even if you're going through a rough patch, you don't laugh at your partner's vulnerability like it's entertainment. The next morning, everything was different. Not because Mei-Lin had changed, she acted like nothing had happened, but because I finally saw our marriage clearly. I stopped trying to initiate intimacy. What was the point? I got my answer loud and clear. I stopped planning romantic gestures. Why waste my time on someone who found my efforts ridiculous? I stopped trying to have deep conversations about our relationship. Mei-Lin had already checked out mentally. I was just catching up. Instead, I started working late. Really late. It was easier than coming home to someone who treated me like an annoying roommate. I started eating dinner alone, either at the office or after Mei-Lin had already finished and moved on to her phone. Eventually, I moved into the guest bedroom, told her I was working on some late-night projects and didn't want to disturb her sleep. She didn't object. In fact, she seemed relieved to have the bed to herself. During this period, I did something I never thought I'd do. I quietly consulted with a divorce attorney, not because I was ready to file papers, but because I needed to understand what ending my marriage would actually look like. The lawyer was straightforward. Since we had no kids and relatively simple finances, it would be clean, efficient. He also advised me to start documenting things. Mei-Lin's behavior, our declining relationship, the patterns that showed she'd mentally exited our marriage long before I was ready to admit it. So I started keeping records. Screenshots of her social media posts about girls' nights while claiming to be too tired for date nights with me. Text messages that showed where her priorities really were. It was painful but clarifying. Seeing our relationship problems laid out chronologically made it impossible to keep making excuses for her behavior. After a few weeks of my new routine, Mei-Lin finally noticed I'd pulled away completely. But instead of concern, her reaction was annoyance. You've been so distant lately, Kenji. What's your problem? What's my problem? I wanted to laugh, the same way she'd laughed at me. But I didn't have the energy to explain. What was I supposed to say? Remember when you mocked me for wanting intimacy with my own wife? She'd probably just make another excuse. Tell me I was overreacting, that I was being dramatic. The final confrontation happened on a Sunday in December, about 2 months after the incident that had changed everything. Mei-Lin had been complaining all day about my emotional distance, acting like I owed her the same attention and effort I'd been giving for years. Finally, I looked at her calmly and said 5 words. I want a divorce, Mei-Lin. The shock on her face was immediate. Then came the tears, the pleading. The woman who'd laughed at my vulnerability was suddenly desperate for me not to leave. I didn't mean to hurt you, Kenji. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can try harder. But I was done trying. I'd already tried harder than anyone should have to try in their own marriage. I gave you everything I had, I told her, and you showed me exactly what you thought of it. She kept pleading, promising to change, suggesting romantic getaways and couples therapy and all these interventions that might have worked 2 years earlier. But you can't undo contempt. You can't take back that laugh. Once someone shows you they don't respect you, really shows you, there's no going back. The divorce took 8 months to finalize. Mei-Lin kept hoping I'd change my mind, but every day apart confirmed I'd made the right decision. I felt lighter without her, happier, like I could finally breathe again. Her final messages to me were full of regret and promises to do better. She acknowledged that she'd been disrespectful and dismissive, said she'd learned from the experience. But reading those messages just confirmed that she still didn't get it. She thought our problems were about communication and effort, not fundamental incompatibility and lost respect. When the divorce was finalized, I felt sad about the failure of something I'd entered with such hope. But mostly, I felt relieved. Relieved to be free from the constant humiliation, from trying to earn affection from someone who'd already decided I wasn't worth her time. The experience taught me something crucial. Disrespect can destroy a marriage faster than infidelity. Mei-Lin's mockery had been just as devastating as if she'd cheated on me. Maybe worse, actually, because at least an affair would have meant she still saw me as someone worth hiding things from. Her laugh told me she saw me as pathetic, beneath her, unworthy of even basic consideration. I learned that love without respect is worthless, and someone who can laugh at your vulnerability isn't someone you can trust with your heart. That cruel laugh had actually been a gift. It showed me the truth about what our marriage had become, and it gave me the clarity to choose self-respect over false hope. Sometimes love ends not from betrayal or deception, but from the simple recognition that your partner doesn't respect you enough to treat your heart with care. And once someone mocks your need for connection, they've forfeited the right to your continued efforts. The woman who found my desire ridiculous had no right to cry when I decided to take that desire somewhere else. 6 months later, I'm happier than I've been in years. I've rediscovered parts of myself that got lost trying to be enough for someone who'd already decided I wasn't. And you know what? I hope Mei-Lin learned something from losing me. But honestly, that's not my problem anymore. Thanks for listening, everyone. If my story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about love, loss, and finding your self-worth again. Until next time.